Hey guys, Sean T. Phillips here with a brand new video talking to you guys about my top picks for the top 20 most underrated horror movies. Of course, these are my picks for underrated horror movies. Of course, though, I could pick hundreds. There's so many underrated horror movies, so many movies I feel like that don't get the attention they deserve, or you just don't hear people bringing them up as much as they bring up other things. Like, some movies you kind of hear about coming up all the time, like the Friday the 13th films or Nightmare on Elm Street and things like that you kind of hear all the time brought up. But then there's some movies that, you just don't hear about them as much, or they aren't on people's lists as much as movies to watch around Halloween time, or movies that they watch a lot and things like that. Of course, there's a couple really weird picks in here as well. Like I said, kind of went through the collection and kind of picked out the ones that kind of jumped out to me as ones that are kind of weird or underrated or not talked about as much, or ones that I kind of really like. So basically that's what this video is. I can probably down the line though do more of these because there's so many movies that I consider underrated. To me, I always love a lot of the underrated movies or the lesser known, lesser spoken about films. Below though, let me know what your guys' picks are, some of the underrated movies you guys would say, or movies maybe you guys don't hear people talk about as much, or you just feel like they don't have the attention they deserve. Now, the first one I picked, this is a movie, the sequels were okay. I still don't think they were as good as their first movie. The first movie was so cool to me and so creepy. People talk about movies that are really, really scary. This movie is actually, to me, very scary, and it works so much with, everything in this movie. Tony Todd really went for it by putting the bees in his mouth, but the movie, though, is Candyman. This is the first Candyman, which in the U.S. does not have a Blu-ray release yet. Hopefully soon there's a U.S. Blu-ray release, like something like Scream Factory or something will release this one. I believe there is one, like a UK one. I think it's region-free. I'm not 100% certain though, but this movie though creeps me out so much. Though everything in this movie is cool though. The atmosphere. I remember as a kid though, there's that scene there in the bathroom. They were talking about what happened in the bathroom and that toilet and stuff like that. And that always creeped me out when I went to kind of city bathrooms and stuff like that. And the setting, and they kind of filmed this in the project areas. There's just such a amazing setting and just such a creepy story about this. If you talk to the mirror and you say the Candyman name 3 times, Candyman comes and kills you. Is pretty much what it is in the mirror. But this is just such a creepy movie. Love this one so much. This one, and this is a really, really weird movie, and I've always liked this one. Arrow Video released this one recently. Was so glad they put this out. And this is, I think, one of my favorite sets of theirs for just the look of it. And it's a movie called Society, and this is just such a strange movie. And it's basically though about this kid who's lives. His family's this really uppity, preppy family, like Beverly Hills, with all this money. And there's just something really odd about his sister and his parents, and they're kind of he doesn't really feel included in his family, and they're really doing odd things, and all the rich friends that are around him, he doesn't really fit in with them, and there's just something peculiar going on. And the sister's talking about this party that she's having, the coming out party, and there's just basically though there's it turns into this huge weird thing that happens at the party, and they're playing for this kid, the kid, and it's such a strange movie. Really like this movie, but like I said, really, really odd one. This one is what I would say is a super underrated slasher movie. Jeff Lieberman made this movie, directed this movie. And I would really say this is probably one of the coolest, probably best slasher movies that I've say is ever made. To me, the music in this was a lot of whistling, and just the whole vibe of this is very creepy. It was from 1981, I think, or was it 80 or 81? I can't. Yeah, 81. And it's a movie called Just Before Dawn. It stars George Kennedy. This is the Blu-ray release that Code Red put out. And I think it was a limited to 1,000 copies of this one. But this is basically though about a group of people who are going out, camping in the woods. So it's a typical kind of story you've seen a lot. But there's these weird people out there that are killing them and attacking them. There's just something about the vibe of this one. And you always hear people bring up The Burning, which is really good, and you hear people bring up the Friday the 13th films, but you don't hear Just Before Dawn come up. And if you guys slasher in the woods camping out kind of things about people getting killed, and the one guy in this is the guy who was in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, who's fork over the money for lifting it for you, Buxton. He's one of the guys in this one. But I always really love this movie. I really love Jeff Lieberman's movie. Hopefully he comes back and does a new movie at some point, because I always love all of his films. Now this is sort of sci-fi, but it still is a horror movie though, sci-fi horror one. And this movie, you don't hear this brought up very much at all. This only has a full screen DVD. I don't think there's a widescreen one. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's only this full screen one. There's no Blu-ray. I don't think think there's a Blu-ray even in any other countries. If there is, let me know below, because I'm definitely going to get that. But this is a very cool, creepy science fiction horror movie called Screamers. They made a really bad direct-to-video sequel to this. It wasn't great at all. But this one, the first movie, was very cool, starring Peter Weller. And it was like these weird robots that were like taking over people's bodies, and you didn't know who was real and who wasn't a robot, because they like, it was kind of like Body Snatchers a little bit. And like if you the creatures would like do this weird screaming and stuff like that, and it was kind of in a post-apocalyptic world on this planet, and Peter Weller was there and kind of trying to like sort of stay alive out there, and he comes across a group of these people living in this bunker, and they're all kind of not sure who is real and whatnot. It's a very cool movie, and like I feel like no one ever brings this movie up. It's like I said, really underrated. You never hear it come up. But always really like this movie. Like I said, hopefully it gets a Blu-ray release at some point, because I feel like it's one of those things that's kind of like, maybe it'll come out as like a burn on demand, since Sony's doing that with some of their releases, but I'm hoping for like a bigger release for this one. Now this one, you know, these are like the Leprechaun series, but the one that I think people don't talk about that much is Leprechaun 3. This is in the, you know, the collection of all the movies together in here. That Leprechaun Origins, though, that was really bad. I did not like that one at all, and it really didn't work, because like it was supposed to be like a home, like kind of starting the series over again, and that like never went anywhere. It was kind of like now buried away. But Leprechaun 3, though, is all set in Vegas. And you know me, I always love Vegas movies. And you don't hear the third one brought up much at all. People always talk about the first movie. But the third one with him in Vegas, there's just some super ridiculous stuff in there going on in Vegas with like, and some gross stuff too, of him cutting the one person in half, and like that trick, but he really cuts them in half. But like I said, this is one of the, out of the Leprechaun movies, that's a very underrated one. Now, this one is a movie that's a very bad movie, but a very fun bad movie, like a best worst kind of movie, like a Troll 2 type film. And you hear always people talk about Ice Cream Man, starring Clint Howard, but you hardly ever hear people bring up this movie called Mr. Ice Cream Man, which was shot so strange. This is such a peculiar, underrated movie, and it's basically, though, about a ice cream man who's like killing kids and stuff like that. It's the same thing kind of as you know, Ice Cream Man with Clint Howard, but this is like an even cheaper one. You know, Clint, if that movie wasn't cheap enough, because that movie was kind of shot, I think by the guy who did that did like some adult films and was sort of shot like that. This one was like shot like kind of like really kind of homemade type cameras, and just really peculiar, and like the child actors in this were really bad and super over the top. Like it's almost like a kids movie, almost like a kids Christian movie kind of feel, like a Buttercream Gang or something, like a really low budget one, but yet it's not that kind of movie. It's like a horror movie, but just like really cheesy and really ridiculous. If you guys can find this one, I recommend checking this out if you like really ridiculous type Troll 2 kind of bad acting kind of films. This is another one that's one of my favorite movies that I just feel like this one, you know, Scream Factory released this, but you don't hear people bring it up very much. And I remember, like, when I first saw this movie, I think I saw this one in theaters, because, like, this teacher I had threw chalk at my eye, and it was a huge to-do, and I ended up, you know, ditching school because it was, like, a pending legal matter. What was going to happen to this guy? So I ended up seeing Ravenous instead. And this is, like I said, this movie's Ravenous. You know, this has in here Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle, and Jeremy Davis, Jeffrey Jones, David Arquette, and this is basically set during the Spanish-American War, and the one guy ends up, Guy Pearce's character ends up, you know, basically this cannibal comes to his camp where he's working at, and like kind of he's kind of like working with the military there, and he's kind of like, he had to play dead and to try and survive this war, and like he played dead, so he's kind of cracked up, so they kind of put him out there to kind of hide him away, because they really don't know what to do with him. So he's out there, and Robert Carlyle's character kind of comes in there to the camp and says, all these people who are attacked and out there, and they need help, and he basically wants to bring them out to the camp where this happened. Of course, though, he's a cannibal and wants to get them out there so he can eat them, and that's kind of what the story is. But such a cool movie. The music too, the guys from the band Gorillaz actually did this music. It was one of the only movies they actually did the score to. I don't think they did scores for any other movies, but it was really cool. Like, has this real like Civil War type vibe, but done like in synths and stuff like that. Really cool movie though. This is another one that I feel like people kind of talked about this, and then you don't hear about it much at all anymore. And it's an Angela Bates movie, Jeremy Sisto and Anna Faris, an early Anna Faris movie called, directed by Lucky McGee, called May. So I've always loved this movie. Always a big fan too of Jeremy Sisto. He was in, Wrong Turn, 6 Feet Under, one movie recently called Hangman, which was actually a pretty cool movie. This is basically about this girl named May who works at a animal hospital, taking in animals and stuff like that. And she's very, just really screws loose with her, and she's like kind of like obsessed with this doll in her house, and she's basically trying to make the perfect boyfriend. So she's kind of like picking people and like taking their parts to try and make the perfect person. Just a really cool movie. Definitely my favorite Lucky McGee movie. He also went on to direct that like cheerleader movie. I can't remember what it was, like Cheerleader Death. There's recently he did that one. A couple other ones though, but this is definitely my favorite. And he also directed Sick Girl for After Dark Horror Fest with Misty Monday, which was actually a pretty good one too, as a one from the shorts from that. And Angela Bates was in that one as well. This is one too that I feel like a lot of movies kind of copied this one or like ripped off like the gore effects and kind of things like that that happen in this. It's a movie called Street Trash, and I always liked this one, like with this whiskey that was like old poison risk whiskey that they found in this bar, this liquor store the guy's kind of trying to sell. And of course, there's like something wrong with it. Anyone drinks it kind of melts down and turns into like ooze and like these terrible, gross deaths and stuff like that. It's all like killing the people in the homeless community and stuff. It's such a weird, over the top, strange movie. But you don't hear people bring this one up as much as it should be. It's just such a strange movie. Definitely check this out, guys. I've always really liked this. This is another really weird one. The Code Red released this one. It's another one of those limited edition ones that I bought a while ago. I don't know if you can still get this one or not. I think sometimes people think it's out of print, and then you can still get it on their Co-Red site every so often. But it's a movie called Neon Maniacs. And this is just such a strange movie, too, because it's like, in that movie, there's like these trading cards on the ground. It's like of these maniacs. It's kind of like these maniacs like have their own set of trading cards. You never really understood what that was about, but it's these kind of weird creatures that come out from under the San Francisco Bridge, and at night they go out there and they're like, some of them are samurais and some of these like weird creatures and all these odd creatures. They go out and kind of attack and kill people at night. The movie is like a really peculiar movie, and it's not really great, but it's very underrated and very like a really, really fun watch movie. And the music in this is great. Like it's like the synth kind of music, but it's like also like super cheesy synth in points, because you could kind of hear the person like playing the keys real fast and stuff. It's got that real over the top synth music. But I always really, really like this one. This is another one. It's not a great movie at all, but you don't hear it brought up at all. And if you guys like mall movies, this is a great mall movie, because it's just like, chopping malls. You hear people talk about more than this. This is actually one of Pauly Shore's like earliest movies, or one of his earliest movies, called Phantom of the Mall. This is also another one. If you ever see it anywhere, get it. It's out of print and very expensive. And it's a movie, like I said, called Phantom of the Mall. And they shot this, I'm pretty sure, at Sherman Oaks Galleria, which is all changed now. But it's this guy who, like, something happened to him, and he was like felt depressed about what happened to his life, and so I think somebody died, I'm pretty sure, and he ends up like haunting the mall, and they're trying to open up this mall for the grand opening, and he's kind of like in the rafters causing mischief and causing all kinds of troubles and stuff like that. And like you see a lot more Pauly Shore than you think you would in this movie too. But this is I don't know, I always really like this movie. You know me too, I love mall movies. This is another one. It's kind of sad too. The location of this just burnt down in the fires recently, which is so sad, because like they filmed like Devil's Rejects there, and tons of movies in this location. It was such a cool location, and it's all gone now, which really sucks, because I always wanted to go and see this place. And it's the movie's Motel Hell. It's another one that I don't think a lot of people have seen, but it is such a great movie. And if you guys like movies that are kind of like set in hotels, and it's about a guy who basically runs people off the road, and he like plants them in his garden in the back, the secret garden that he has, and he kind of like grows them out there and like harvests his humans out there and turns them into jerky at his hotel. And like people too who like don't pay or cause mischief at the hotel and stuff, he puts them out there and buries them back there, and then pulls them out and then turns them into jerky. And it's like his whole weird thing with him and his sister Ida. I have always loved this movie. This one too that I was so glad when they put a Scream Factory release this on Blu-ray. This is one too that definitely needs a Blu-ray release as well. And people talk about Pet Sematary, but I know this is not a great movie, but I'm a huge fan of Eddie Furlong, and I've always loved this movie. I like the bully in this movie, that actor, and just like the whole vibe of this movie. It's such a cool movie. And then, the guy who plays Mr. Krabs, Clancy Brown is the voice of Mr. Krabs, and he was in Carnival, was so good as like the mean, like terrible stepfather in this, who was like skinning the rabbits, and he was just like, when he came back to life, he was like real gross and weird. And this movie is Pet Sematary 2. I've always loved this movie. I always cry this movie at the end. I don't know why I get so wrapped up in this movie. I just always loved this movie. Like I said, I know it's not a perfect movie, but if it comes to watching Pet Sematary and this one, I always pick to watch this one more, and I don't know why. Like Pet Sematary, the first movie, is way better than this. There's just something about this movie that I love watching this. I've been a fan of this one since I was a kid. Just like I said, you always hear people talk about Pet Sematary, but you don't hear the second one come up as much. And it's basically Eddie Furlong's mother, who was this actress who ended up dying making this movie. She was electrocuted, and Eddie Furlong is now going back with his father, back where the town where he grew up, and he's back there dealing with the bullies, and it deals with them bringing people back from the dead and all that kind of stuff as well, like in the first movie. Now this one, you always hear people bring up The Lost Boys, but this is a vampire movie that came around the exact same time that you don't hear people bring up as much. And it's, in some ways, it's cooler than Lost Boys in certain aspects, but still Lost Boys I would pick to watch that more. But there are some very cool aspects of this movie. It's another one that I definitely hope there's like a new edition of this one down the line as well. And this movie is Near Dark. This is, Catherine Bigelow directed this. She didn't really do too many other horror movies. She's done, Hurt Locker and more like serious type movies since then. But this movie, stars, Bill Paxton's in this one, Tim Thomerson. The music in this one was Tangerine Dream, like great music and great vampire sequences in this one. Like if, like I said, people always bring up The Lost Boys. They don't bring this one up as much. And this one, if you guys like vampire movies, definitely look into this one. This movie, I always bring this up, but it is underrated. I hope at some point they put out like a really cool edition of this movie, and maybe give this a Blu-ray release, because I'm sure somewhere there's a print of this that somebody can find. And this is one of those movies too. I talked about this when there was only a bootleg available, and like always brought this up. And then and then they finally put out that burn on demand release of this one. But I would love like Scream Factory or somebody to do like a big release of this, because I feel like there would be a lot. Like, I don't know. I feel like they could definitely find a print of this movie, because it was definitely shot on film. I'm pretty certain, but if they actually have it anymore, I don't know. This movie is Bad Ronald, which is one I always thought too, Jesse Eisenberg is too old to do it now, but he definitely could have played Bad Ronald if they did a remake of this. And it's basically though about this kid who ends up killing this girl in the beginning of the movie by accident, and he ends up running back to his house, and his mom is like, "What are we gonna do? You can't go to jail." So she ends up basically walling off the kid in the house, and he kind of lives in the walls of the house, hiding away when the police are trying to find him, and then the mother ends up dying, and then that's kind of what happens with him in this wall and what he does when the new people move in. But such a great one. If you guys want to watch a really weird movie, definitely get this one. Like I said, this is one you can get on the Warner Archive. Another one that I would say is, this one actually just came out, a Larry Cohen movie, but you don't hear it talked about as much until like recently when it came out again. This movie is called The Stuff, about this kind of yogurt stuff that came out of the ground, and it becomes like the fixation that everyone is obsessed with eating this, and this one kid knows there's something off about this, and everyone who eats this stuff, it kind of starts to control them, and they have like they start dying from it, and like so you go really kind of another Basin of the Body Snatcher kind of vibe thing about it, kind of taking over people and everyone becoming like obsessed with this one, but a very cool, weird movie. This is another one that Arrow released recently, and I was so glad to discover this one because I had never seen this before, and this is probably one of my favorite slasher movies I've ever seen, next to Just Before Dawn, for at least for like lesser known ones. And this one was so cool. It's a movie called Blood Rage, and there's the one scene there when the kids talking to the mom going, "I'm Todd." And it's basically about these two twin brothers. In the beginning of the movie, this one twin brother kills these people at this drive-in, and he blames it on the other brother. It says he did it, so the one that didn't do it gets sent to the insane asylum. The other one who actually did it gets to go home with the parents, and so it's too bad what my brother did. Of course, though, it's kind of about the one, years later, the one gets out of the nut house, and he's the one who didn't do it. And he comes back, and then right when he comes back, the brother wants to make him go back away again, so he starts killing people. And this is filmed in Florida, so it's all these weird areas of Florida, and everyone getting killed with these really ahead of its time gore effects in this one too, like super, super gory, great synth music in this one. Now this one, people always bring up, Halloween, the first Halloween movie, the second Halloween movie, the later ones. And this one, I've talked about this a lot. I think this, out of all the Halloween movies, is my favorite one to watch. I think it should have just been called Season of the Witch, to be honest, and I've said that in the past, because it kind of people are mad because it didn't have Michael Myers in it, and it was a totally different thing. But it's actually, this is like a perfect Halloween movie. If you want to talk about like a movie to watch on Halloween, this is like the perfect one. This is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Like I said, out of all the Halloween movies, this is my favorite one to watch. And it's basically, though, about this company that's making these masks, these silver shamrock masks, that, is kind of trying to destroy all the kids in the world by, like, making them wear these masks during the TV, because it's like, oh, 3 more days for the big giveaway. Make sure you're wearing your mask and sit in front of the TV and watch it. Of course, these masks are going to basically kill these people, and it's, Tom Atkins' character is trying to stop this, and he's, like, discovered something is up. But really, really cool movie. Always kind of reminds me a little bit of Night of the Comet. I have no idea why. Something about, like, this, like, a couple scenes in this kind of have this, like, Night of the Comet vibe mixed with, like, the Stepford Wives kind of feel to me. And this is an anthology one. And only recently have people kind of started talking about it, and now you don't hear about it as much. And it's my favorite. I think it's probably my favorite anthology movie, at least one of the top anthology movies. Probably next to like Creepshow and Creepshow 2 that I really love watching. This is, John Carpenter Presents Body Bags, which was shot originally as like a pilot for Showtime, and then they didn't end up picking this up, and this is like the uncensored one of this, but a really weird one. And my favorite story in this one was, though, set in the this guy who came to a gas station, like impersonated a gas station attendant, and was like, going after this woman who was using there working. But a really cool movie, like great anthology one. John Carpenter plays like the crypt keeper kind of guy, like presenting the stories, and he's like a corpse in there. I don't know. I always really like this one. The last one. This is another one that kind of gets overlooked a little bit when it comes to people watching it and stuff, and it's definitely, hopefully, is getting a Blu-ray release soon in the U.S. I think Synapse is going to be doing it at some point, but I've been waiting forever for a Blu-ray release of this, and this is Dario Argento's Suspiria. This is one of those ones I love to watch. This is the old edition from Anchor Bay years ago, the limited to 60,000 one. Nowadays you'd never see something get 60,000 copies. Like nowadays it would be like 10, 15 like tops, I would think. But this is like back when DVDs were new and there was like tons of copies of these. This, like now that seems like a huge amount. Like now, like some of these things from Code Red, they only make 1,500, 1,000 copies of it. So it's kind of like insane that at a time they were making this many of a horror movie. But this one though is basically a girl who goes to this ballet school, and there's like they're witches, and it's these amazing sequences of music. This is definitely Dario Argento's top movie, best movie of all time that he's ever done. I liked Opera as well, which is another underrated one, which hopefully gets a Blu-ray release at some point as well in the U.S. But this is also getting remade, with Chloe Grace is going to be in it, Dakota Johnson. The director, I'm not exactly sure why they didn't get Nicholas Refn, Wending Refn, to direct it. He would be like absolutely perfect to do the remake, and I kind of wish they'd get rid of the other guy and have him do it, because he would be like the top guy to do it, because with his lighting and his look. Or hire the guy who shoots his movies, Nicholas Wending Refn's movies, because he has like a really good look for like this kind of a movie. I'll watch the remake of this, but I feel like I don't know if it really is something that can be remade. This is like a very 70s kind of thing too, about going away to dance schools like this. It's not really like it is now, I don't think. It was back then. I'll see it though, but this is, like I said, this is the cool old edition too that had like the soundtrack and stuff to this one. But anyway, though, guys, that was my pick for, like, top 20 underrated movies. Like I said, there's so many movies in here that I would say are underrated. But these are kind of just the ones that jumped out to me at first. Like I said, there's some weird titles in here. But I feel like they're just one I wanted to bring more attention to them. And they're kind of ones that I always really like. And just, to me, are just fun, weird watches. And, like, no one talks about them. But anyway, though, guys, like I said, let me know below what some of your picks are for the top, some of your top underrated horror movies below. Thanks again for watching, for subscribing. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.